Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another year of the startup series. In 2023, we were in trenches with the startup founders, helping them navigate a wide variety of challenges running the startup. And this year, we expect more of the same. And what better to kick off with something every startup faces, the age-old challenge of funding. Something getting the first check to transform your deep tech vision into thriving reality. For a deep tech startup founder, an investor's belief is valuable as their capital because the early investor does not just add your resources, but they multiply your possibilities. They give you the credibility. And the finding right one is invaluable. And let's quickly explore the world of deep tech startups. According to Traction, there are more than 73,000 deep tech startups in this sector. Approximately 34%, around 25,000 of those secured funding. And this, of course, shows a very, very strong investor confidence in the area. And significantly, of those 11%, nearly 8,000, have reached to Series A or beyond, showing their growth and market validation. Even more impressive, 201 of these companies are unicorn, each valued over $1 billion, highlighting the high impact of innovation and how they are changing and disrupting the industries. In terms of the sector, which has attracted an enormous 549 billion with a remarkable 148 billion invested in just last 2 years. And in the recent surge, amounting is about 27% of the total investments, which underscores the accelerating interest in the deep tech as a transformative potential for the entire investor community. And in summary, deep tech startup landscape is booming with innovation and robust financial support, signaling a bright and promising future for the sector. Which is why I'm very excited to introduce our guest speaker and talk to this topic of early stage investments in the deep tech. Both of the investors who I have today are shaping and helping a lot of startups and deep tech startups like yours. Of course, many of you know me. I am Govind Kede and I run Arctic Invent, which helps companies increase their enterprise value by way of building business-centric IPR portfolio. My company Arctic Invent has worked with over 1,000 plus deep tech startups from Europe, US, India, helping them with the massive value of their product and technologies by way of getting patents and trademarks around the world and in a most cost effective in the most strategic manner. So my first guest is Arjun Rao. He is founder and general partner at Speciale Invest. The fund does not need any introduction, and in early stage venture capital firm specializes in enterprise deep tech investments in both software and hardware. An active angel investor and entrepreneur advisor, he has nearly 2 decades of experience in product development, GTM strategies, and fundraising. Previously a serial entrepreneur, Arjun's early career was rooted in software development and project management. Welcome to the Startup Series, Arjun. I hope I have covered, but please add if I missed something.
Thank you so much, Govind. Really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me and for the very kind introduction. Right. Yeah, we're very excited to be in this conversation with you and, of course, another dear friend, Kamlesh, you will talk about, and most importantly, talk about deep tech and the future of deep tech in the country.
Great. Thanks, Arjun. Welcome. And my next guest, Kamlesh, has over a decade in semiconductor industry. He's an experienced angel investor with 50 plus investments. He's avid reader. I know he's a very knowledge seeker. He's always reading something new. I get inspired what he learns. He's also an LP in a lot of deep tech funds, specializing in the deep tech businesses and helping them also raise funds, help founder, hand-holding them, guiding them, and taking them to the next level. Welcome to the Startup Series, Kamlesh. And it was not possible without you. You kindly accepted the invite and also got Arjun for us. Thank you for doing this for us.
Hey, thank you very much, and I'm also really excited about this session, and we have expert here. I mean Arjun, so I think we'll cover so many things today. I'm really looking forward for this conversation. Thank you. I think we can kickstart. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
So before we
Thanks
begin our
for
conversation,
connecting us.
yes. So before
I
we
think.
begin the conversation, sorry,
Yeah,
Kamlesh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, I mean, Speciale and Arjun, right? I'll just put one sentence. He's very down to earth person, right? I've seen him whenever you meet him. or my friends met him. He goes and meet him, and I meet them actually. So I've seen, like, I've never seen any other VCs who has done that, like remembering the face you meet once. And he's been very kind, and exchanging views also. He is down to earth. Thank you very much, Arjun, for this session. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Kamlesh.
Thanks. So before we begin our conversation, I would like to remind our audience to avail this opportunity to ask both Arjun and Kamlesh any questions. Just put them in question and answer, and we'll pick them up along with the conversation. So let's start, discussing about it. So as per Inc. 42, there is this, despite of this 2022 dip and funding winter, deep tech startup continued to raise funds in 2023, reaching almost 496 million compared to 397 million in the previous year, as per the Inc. 42 report. So this highlights the investor confidence in the long-term potential of these ventures, right? So my first, question is, what it makes deep tech startup particularly appealing to the early stage investors in today's market, especially in India? So Arjun, as a fund, and Kamlesh as an angel, would love to know your insight on this.
Sure. No, I'll take a first shot at that. Couple of points I'd like to make. One is obviously the role of an investor, particularly early stage, is to bet on the future, right? Which is, over a longer period of time. In minimum, I would say 5+ years, but ideally 10 years and sometimes even beyond, right? And that is at the heart of saying, what does the future hold? What are the technologies that are shaping the future of business and industry and the world in general? And if we look at deep tech, or what do we call deep tech, it usually is never one single piece of technology. It usually is at the intersection of a few technologies coming together at the right time to be able to create and generate some disproportionate delta innovation and disruption, right? So if we put these two things together, which is multifold disruption and innovation, and the view to saying we need to build technologies that are going to change the future 5-10 years ahead, that is the secret sauce, and that's the magic for early stage investors, correct? And we are sort of in these last 2 years, maybe over the last 5 years, particularly at the middle of a very strong integration and intersection wave, right? So many things are happening in terms of particularly software and hardware things coming together, correct? Of course, we all know what is the buzz of the season and the flavor of the season, which is AI and Gen AI, right? But overall, high level of compute availability, right? Ability to use vast sources of data, ability to really have really complex and cutting edge models and AI models and algorithms, and then overlay that on the changes that are happening in the physical world, right? Be it in manufacturing, be it in climate change or sustainability in energy, be it in semiconductor, and of course Kamlesh can talk about that, it is closer to his world, right? But there is so many industries that are getting impacted with the sort of intersection of what we call atoms and bits, crudely, right? And the bit side is of course all the software and the compute and the models, and on the hardware side is whatever that industry does, whether it is robotics, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is building rockets and space, and whether it is building semiconductors, right? Just this coming together doesn't happen ever so often, right? I think it happens once in every 10, 15, 20 years, right? I think we're sort of in the middle of that, right? Therefore, the opportunities and the possibilities for the next 10 years is very, very exciting. So from an early stage investor perspective and as a fund at Speciale, this really excites us to say there are so many industries that are either getting disrupted or on the cusp of getting disrupted, right? And the incumbents have to innovate, and the new emerging startups also have to contribute to this disruption and this innovation. And bunch of early stage stuff in the last 15 years, if you look at the Indian ecosystem, which has been tech enabled products and businesses, have actually gone to good scale and actually covered a lot of segments also, right? Which means maybe a bunch of low-hanging fruit and opportunities have also been taken on the tech-enabled stuff. Therefore, it's time for us as an overall ecosystem to go to the next level and look at what is your domain, IP-led innovation, correct?
Sure.
And then look at it from an industry perspective. Which industries need change? Which industries have potential for change, right? That is what excites us. So we're looking at areas such as space technology, robotics for manufacturing, automation, of course, emerging areas such as semiconductor as well as biotechnology. All of these have very interesting timing today, right? Of what two or three technologies coming together that to solve for problems that were not possible to solve 10 years ago, right? So I would
Right.
leave it at that and allow Kamlesh also to chime in with his thoughts. But that's what's super exciting for us.
Sure.
Okay.
Kamlesh.
I think Arjun he has covered very vast, topic regarding the deep tech, right? So the industry which I come from, right, is a semiconductor industry. And what I've seen, especially, how VCs or angels like me, right, who are, long and deep in deep tech, is because the problems that deep tech startups solve, right? They are actually pushing the boundaries of the science and technology, right? So that's why you call them deep tech, And I understand deep tech as there are two parts of it, right? One is pure science. Another one is there is an incremental science, right? Incremental science in the sense incremental innovation, right? So when 1947, when William Shockley invented transistor, right? So I'll okay more in this session more I'll try to talk from the semiconductor perspective, which is one of the verticals of the deep tech, right? So I'll try to give you an example from that perspective. So that was a pure innovation, right? Because you were using the tubes before that for the counting and the machines and everything, and then the transistor came into picture, right? So same thing as Arjun mentioned, right? So we are at the cusp of disrupting few of the verticals in the deep tech like healthcare, biotech, due to the availability of the AI, the Gen AI models you have, right? So, like one of the articles which I was reading, right? You could have the DNA replication of the cancer, and then how you can mitigate those things, right? So, upon giving multiple inputs to the LLMs, you could have an output which was not feasible before, but now because of the computation it is feasible. Why it is feasible? Because you have that kind of ICs, or I would say application specific integrated circuits, ASICs, or the chips which we call it, right, in our industry, is readily available. Because from in the that also semiconductor industry per se also, which is going from 65 nanometer to the 7 nanometer and 5 nanometer, right? So you have more and more data into the small hardware, right? So availability of all this, right? So it's not only one event which is helping Indian ecosystem or the VCs or Arjun to look at, hey, I want to go and invest in deep tech. Rather, there are multiple parameters coming into they are falling into the places. Okay, so there is a tailwind from the government side, right? Because if you get this much amount of money, we will try to match it also in the semiconductor especially industry, right? And the best part is like our population, our science graduates or the engineers, right? We have so many of them. We have so much talent in our country, right? So at the early stage, right, what I would look at is like I would like person from the same industry doing the deep tech startups, right? Because I will have only so much compared to what Arjun would have, because he is a VC. He would have vast resources to do that, right? So from an angel per se, I will look at whether the team is equipped enough to understand the problem that they are solving. Would this create a new frontier, as Arjun mentioned? Would it actually, change how the market would look like in that particular vertical, right? Biotech or robotic arms that we are seeing, right? Like completely, your industry 2.0 will change to industry 3.0 manufacturing side, right? So these are all the parameters which excites me as an angel. And like being an angel also, I can divert few of the things which I see to VCs also, and vice versa, for the particular field, because I being in semiconductor, I can help with semiconductor, person from the BTech. So this is like this is not one man thing, or there is no monopoly here that okay, I can do only deep tech because I'm in. No, there are multiple facets that I still have to read. So these all things coming into picture is helping VCs excite about this, because government side, talent wise, we all have that. So that's why now VCs is pouring into this deep tech investment also.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, very interesting, insight that, of course, there has been a wave of e-commerce and consumerism. Now is the time that, what I can hear from Arjun and Kamlesh is that it is the time ready for the next frontier on the science side, right? I mean, yes, we have consumed now this increased consumer, consumer behavior is also leading to newer and newer technologies, maybe on sustainability, maybe on robotics. So I think that's kind of, I think maybe a natural progression of the way the industry and the whole human side is, kind of growing as a whole, right? But very interesting, a lot of times, of course, founders want to position themselves as deep tech, right? I think it's always the case. We being on the IP side also get to those situations where we know that it's maybe an incremental, but the conversation we want to do is the deep tech conversation, right? So question to both of you is that, on a very, very high level, when founders kind of look at them and define them as a deep tech, how do you deconstruct that? Is it by technology, by the trend, what people are talking about, scientific principles? Do you look at, their conversation, time to develop? What is your definition of deep tech? I'm trying to get there so that at least it helps founders to know what kind of lens that you use to say that it is deep tech or it is not deep tech, because very early you cannot say that it will change the whole paradigm of technology, right? I mean, it's always the case, but how do you define this? Maybe if you have done some due diligence with some examples of past, it can help us have more understanding of this conversation.
Kamlesh, why don't you go first?
Okay. Very good question. Actually, I've been asked so many times that because in my profile also I mentioned as a deep tech, right? So somebody messaged me, hey Kamlesh, how do you define this deep tech? Very beautiful question. So see, every problem, be it in consumer side or any other side that you try to solve it, right? They are hard to solve, right? It's nothing like that. Okay, because Swiggy happened or Zomato happened, that problem was not hard. The problem was hard, right? I define deep tech as pure science and the research led. It has to be like. Okay, I'll give you an example, right? Well, I think we both have one company in common, which is like robotic arms, and they are putting vision into it, right? So what they are doing is like they are writing an algorithm to make a robot understand the like any pieces of object, how it was placed, or it's not like it could understand like it has to be placed like this. You could put it in whichever way, but still the robot was able to understand, or it was able to think as human arm only and catching it up, right? And so when when somebody tells me that we are working on the deep tech startup, right? So I literally go and check their codes, man. I mean, I have to go and see what they are building. I have to go and search the articles regarding what they are building, right? Does this technology exist already or not? So there is a lot of due diligence go into this. I must say that it's not like this is the pinpoint or must have problem with the solution which we require for, right? But I literally go in the deeper way. I talk to them. Why are you doing that? Why is it available in other geography or not, right? So first it has to be R&D led, right? Completely R&D led. Like there are 5 people or 5 scientists should be there, right? But in the same area, I need founders to be in, right? Not like coming from some other area and doing it, because for the deep tech, you should have deep knowledge of what you are building. Okay, I cannot see if I'm in semiconductor if I don't know how the ICs are being fabricated. I must know that, right? I cannot tell, somebody else and ask me that. So first is like, I need, when they say this is deep tech, I go and literally research for a week for the topic. So I get so many articles, just go through them. Otherwise, go through the abstract of it. So you would understand that this is the problem which is hard to, solve, right? So those kind, like hydrogen lead, all those things, right? Lithium lead. And now people are talking about in your one of the session, right? Semiconductor, gallium nitride, right? So GaN lead transistors are coming into picture, right? So you should know, right? Hey, is it feasible or not? If it is not feasible, then it's a hard problem to solve, because in future you will have only so much silicon or anything like that which we are making IC from, right? So you need to understand that the gestation period would be large, but yeah, after that you can assign them as okay, yeah, this problem doesn't exist. They will completely change how the industry would work, and then you can assign them as a deep tech startup, right? It's not like consumer, you are drinking something and then like you are changing your habit, this kind of tea or that kind of tea. But you have to go literally R&D led papers should be there that they are building from, right? It's like research led to the market, right? Yeah.
Sure. Arjun, how you and the fund look at deep tech?
Yeah, I think it's like Kamlesh said, great question. It's like an oft-repeated question, right? It has multiple flavors. That's also the reality, right? It means different things to different people. I concur with Kamlesh in terms of there has to be some deep domain expertise on the technology side, and at a very high level, in other tech-enabled areas, consumer or others, and etc. Right? There's a market insight. There's a customer insight. Here, there is a technical breakthrough and a technical insight, right? That is one key aspect, right? What is that one key area that you are making 10x better, right? And it need not be 10% better, 30%, 50% better, because that is incremental, that can be done by somebody else, right? What is it that you're changing that is 10 times better? It's something going to do the work 10 times faster? Is something going to be 10 times easier to build? Is something going to be 10 times cheaper to make, right? All of that makes it in the realm of real disruption and put it in the category of deep tech. Automatically, the team has to come from that background, right? Either academia or academia plus corporate, right? Where they have worked in these R&D areas. And through that work, they have arrived at this technical insight, right? The specific outcome of this is that you will not have many competitors. Correct? The complexity of building, the time it takes to build, the background of the people that it takes to build, all that put together will mean that there will be competition. There's almost no things that have no competition. That's not the point. But you will not have 20 competitors. You will have 2 competitors, 3 competitors, right? Which automatically is a very great place, starting point to be, as long as you're able to deliver the promise and the solution that you're talking about. Now, you have to take this and translate this to the customer side, correct? Like we said, is it 10 times faster, easier, cheaper, better, correct? The question is, what does that mean for the end customer? And that journey also has to be tied in for a deep tech. While it can come from research, the conversion of research to development of a product, and then the product from a business perspective, does it hold good? You could improve something 100 times, but if the customer doesn't care about that improvement and is not ready to yet use it immediately, then that is not the right metric for disruption, correct? Or the time is not right, one of the two. So from the customer side, that disruption has to lead to some big financial, economic value generated, right? Which could be because you made it 10 times cheaper, or because you enabled them to do something 10 times faster. The other lens is you enable them to do something that they could not do at all, right? Which is, you're talking about, today, video generation with Gen AI of certain types, right? A very low-skilled writer or person can possibly create a beautiful poem, a beautiful story, maybe can write a movie. There are so many things that was before this technology disruption not possible. So these would be typical lenses to take and saying, okay, let's call this deep tech. This is where it is coming from, correct? The only additional layer I would say is, and maybe this is the fund lens, I think angels can be that much more bold and flexible. But from a fund perspective, we are also being careful that while the innovation is coming from science, right? We want a bunch of the science research to be done already. So if I have to break it down, I say in the R&D, most of the R is done, right? And we are at the cusp of completion of the research and then development, right? So all R&D, all research part of the R&D phase is possibly not ideal for investors, in my opinion. It's a personal opinion or a fund opinion, right? So that possibly has to come from government grants, has to come from academic institution grants, it has to be in the lab, right? Once the science is proven or close to be proven, then how do you convert it into a commercializable product? That is the sort of the ideal transition phase, at least where Speciale and us, we like to operate.
Sure. No, I think great insight, because I think one of the key takeaway for any deep tech founder is that it has to be research led, something which relates to scientific problem, like Kamlesh said, that it is something which articles are talking about. And then you said, I think very important aspect of 10x better. I think that's a very simple rule that deep tech founders have to really think about, that okay, is it 10x better than before? Is it from the financial side, technology side, speed wise, or like you said, it is totally disruptive to the next level? Of course, there is always those things. But I think one of the conversation I had in the due diligence was that if nobody has done this, there is even a risk for a lot of investors that, okay, if nobody has done, then why should I put my money in, right? So
I'll add one more point to this. When he said there is a different aspect how angel is being a bold and investing, because a funny part is because their IRR starts clicking. The moment they start investing, they have to answer to the LPs. Absolutely. I don't have to, right? So what he may, that is beautiful point, for this question to come out from this session is when founders also approach, they have to have a different mindset when they are approaching to VC, why VCs are saying no to us and angels are saying to what is wrong with, there is nothing wrong. Is there how it's mainly pure, it's what you can say, it's a thesis base, right? You cannot, because gestation period would be larger than your fund cycle. You cannot have those kind of investment in your portfolios. Yeah.
I think that kind of brings me to the next question. I think very interesting question from the audience as well, that, at what stage funding makes sense, and what's the ideal time? I think Arjun mentioned about grants. Is it mandatory, or is it a more preferable to have some more grants initially when they are doing this? The question is, how much is the ticket size when you say seed angel round in a deep tech kind of ecosystem? So a lot of questions around funding. So, but to simplify, at what stage, founders should be going out looking for funds, and what is a typical check size they should be looking at? I think that's that's a very simple way to just build on to this question. I think a lot of layers in this question, but I want to keep it very simple for you.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it from a fund level, right? And say, like I said, first, the founder should have worked a fair bit on, thinking through the tech innovation itself, right? And hopefully a bunch of work in the lab, trying to get to some metrics and some numbers that are, that are showcasing that the disruption is large enough, etc. Right? At that time, possibly you could rely on academic partnerships. You could rely on friends and family, a little bit of bootstrap, correct? You could rely, maybe once you're getting a little serious in certain, experiments and tech building that you're doing, you can go towards grants. From a venture capital perspective, like I said, if most of the research is done and you're getting close to product building, right? And starting to build the first version of the product, a prototype or an MVP of sorts. And you're also correlating that stage with saying, who is this product for, right? Just because the tech is hard and complex and time consuming does not mean you don't think about the end customer or you don't talk to the end customer. So at the same time, it's a founder's responsibility, in our opinion, to really go out and talk to prospective customers, to, even though the product is not ready, go and tell them this is what you're building, right? Go and tell them, if first of all, learn about their problems, then tell them that if we came with such a solution, would you be open to trying it? Be early adopter, testing it, and then of course pay for it. Correct? And of course, even the prospective customer will ask the founder a bunch of questions saying, hey, how are you doing this? I'm using this today. How is your solution going to be better? What will it enable me to do? And that's a great exercise, right? So I would say these two aspects are super critical for us. Founder is prepared from a product development perspective, not the product being ready, but he knows what it takes to build the product. He knows a little fair bit about the roadmap that he take from, okay, the science is and the tech is proven, this is what the product will look like, this is what it will do, this is what it will cost. And then he or she has insight from the customer saying, this is the customer pain point it will address, this is what the customer is using today, my solution will be so much better than existing solution. Therefore, to go from here to hit the market, I need X dollars or X rupees, Y rupees, right? And typically pre-seed rounds, we operate at, I would say, starting from $500,000, right? To these days, it's getting up to somewhere between $1 to $2 million, right? Basically, you got to pick where you are and then say, what's that next key milestone? What is that next key technical risk you are going to reduce, right?
Sure.
And what does it take for you to get there? How many engineers, typically, what sort of, I guess, CapEx and maybe some infrastructure, some labs, some testing material, some input if you're building hardware. If you're building software, then what sort of, let's say, compute you need, right? Cloud resources. If you're building semiconductors, then you need testing tools and right? So just put all of that together and say, hey, in somewhere between 12, 18 to 24 months, I can go from phase A to phase B. And that phase B reduces risk a fair bit on the technical side, and that's a good milestone. And basically raise money for that. Typical range, I would say $500,000 to $1.5 million would be my say. It goes a long way in India, in my opinion. These numbers obviously are different in America or in other parts of the world. But that's what we're talking, basically anywhere between 4 to 12 crores. That's not small money to build something very early stage.
So Kamlesh, I have a different question. I think very related to it. Like you said, deep tech inherently require a lot of research, right? And sometimes they originate from university projects. You as Angel, of course, come very early, so that's why I want to have this question for you. How do founders convince angels or otherwise, which may or may not become reality? Of course, it's a research in the lab, and it may not really come out as a product, right? So let's take an example of space tech for that matter, right? I mean, how you as Angel, and what is your typical check size in those kind of situations, and how do you approach that situation? So I think that would be really interesting, a bit from the Angel side, because I think the earlier question was more on the fund side, on the seed, and but how do you really help them, or how do founders really approach this problem?
Okay, so see, mostly when people have approached me, right, so they were already, I heard only one startup which came just from the deck, right? So they were into semiconductor, but raised all, right? So others have come with, as Arjun mentioned, right? So they had bootstrap kind of thing, because the deep tech startups, they because of the inherent risk in them, right? These are the guys from academia, these are the guys from the labs or research postgrades or those things, because they would have minuscule products that they want to expand or scale it for the larger product, larger market or the audiences, right? So mainly for me, like what I look at it is like purely is IP based, right? One of the questions they ask, because I would have only so much resources regarding that product, right? So I normally ask, right? So one of the filters, I keep it in my criteria when deep tech approach me, because they approach me before the VC comes into picture, right? So my job is like, okay, how to introduce them to the VCs. So by that time, as Arjun mentioned, right, because I come one step before Arjun and the VCs, they come into picture is like research, right? So when they do the research, right? So my criteria, I may be wrong also. I have to see their IPs. That is the first and foremost criteria, right? See, apart from like founder market fit and that, I mean the founders I see, okay, their experience is that okay, then they should have multiple papers written on that particular product or the like I mean what they are researching on, right? So mainly I look at the IPs. That is my first criteria. They have to have the IPs. The second thing is what I look at is like whether this kind of thing exists in the other geography or not, right? So whether it is a pure innovation or the incremental innovation, and how long would they take to build this lab related product, like from the lab to the market. When Arjun intersects, right, that he says like, okay, this is where the product is ready, and I come, okay, this is what you need to make the product ready, right? So in that area, so I my job, or when I say like angels like Deep Tech who put in the check size, right, is like merely how many models have you created, how many experiments you have done with your products and failed it, right? Then you have come to one optimized product, which is again not the product market fit. Again, it's just like you will do multiple revision pivots, you would do, right? But at least you would prove the thesis that you have, the right, that okay, this could work it, and these are the numbers of the research that we have done. Okay, this is how the product would look like, and this is the outcome, which is like as Arjun mentioned, right, which is 10x better than the other thing, like computational power or LLM, right? So now, if I'll give you one example, right? So now ChatGPT is generalized, right? Now people are coming up with because the computation requires more. So what they will do is they'll take small data, like ICs, like the GPUs. They would take it from the NVIDIA or any other people, right? So they'll build the specific, right? Like from biotech, you would give all the information regarding to biotech, and then you do it. So that kind of as Arjun mentioned, that like you'll mitigate the risk that you have in your product. What you do, don't become generalized. Be specific. You want to create some LLMs or some algorithm kind of thing that you want to build a product on, then you have that portion. Suppose it's just like how we tell any founders, you go bottom up, don't go top down. It's just like in TAM, you focus on the like in Bangalore, I live in Harlur Road, right? So I will try to sell it people around Harlur Road only. You consider as any other industry that you want to sell nearby. Are you able to attract them? So you go bottom up. So that is what my is like. Okay, did Harlur Road guys like it? Then okay, I'll go and talk to Arjun. Hey Arjun, this product looks nice. This many people are there. So that is what actually I would prefer to do. Is like again, Arjun mentioned milestone based. You create multiple experiment, come out that which is like as I was talking about that extraction of the lithium, cobalt, and all those from the battery cycle. Like what is the percentage of the pure lithium which is coming out of your process, right? So that is the same thing. It's just like I would say in the lab, do you claim 99% or is it 89%, right? Which is better? So that can, after that, when they become from the lab to some 1,000 square feet yard, when that is where Arjun comes into picture. So my job is like from the lab to the big warehouse. Product has to be stabilized by then you go and do the experiment for the scaling. So that is what I look at. And typical check size, which is like 25 to 50 lakhs would come around. That is also you need not only. So what I do is like I go in with any industry expert. I go in with, right? Because again, I have to mitigate my risk also, because I have to have second opinion about this, because I can only read this much. But if the person from the battery industry is coming and saying, hey, I've been seeing this trend, right? We would require this technology in 5 to 10 years, right? Then my confidence also, I need a validation also, whether my investment will go and it become multifold or not. So those kind of criteria I would go in with.
Sure. So Arjun, my next question is to you, because you mentioned about science and business, right? And there's always this debate of founders' expertise. Is it should be more science and more business, right? And of course, not all the time there will be two co-founders, a founder who is pure science or pure business, right? how do you look at this situation? In ideal case, the co-founder must have one science guy, one business person, or you have seen a science person eventually learn the business and then do it better, or business person. What has been your kind of learning so far? Evaluating so many
Sure.
companies or investing in many companies. I think my intent is to learn how founders should look at themselves from a skill point of view, right? So I think that
Sure.
would be very valuable addition on this topic.
Sure. No, I think great question and very important. And of course, honestly, founders come in on all shapes and sizes and all from all backgrounds. Given that it is deep tech, there is definitely a much higher proportion of deeply technical background founders. Correct? That is the overwhelming majority. Let's say 80% crudely, right? 70-80%. The full founding team will come from deeply technical background, right? Masters, PhD, worked in those domains in industries, written papers, etc. Correct? And without it, you cannot build the 10x innovation that you are claiming to build or you want to build. So that is sort of at the heart of it anyway. Now, you do want ideally one of the founders to take up that mantle of being able to go out and figure out the customer, the market, the economics, and the business, right? Sometimes it's possible that a technical founder partners with a business person, but I think a generalist business person coming on board for a very deep technical company and becoming a good enough co-founder doesn't happen every day, right? If that business person possibly comes from the same domain, let's say they are a product manager in that domain, right? Let's say they are a salesperson or an operations person from the same domain. Let's say it is automation, manufacturing, robotics, right? That could be a sales guy for a robotics company. That can be a good co-founder to a technical guy who's building the robotic systems, but this person knows about the customer need, the market size, the pricing, etc. Right? So domain expertise is still sort of required, even if it's a non-technical person, in my opinion. There are very few exceptions to that, right? There are, but there are very few exceptions to that. Otherwise, all co-founding team members being deeply technical, one person will have to play that role and will have to, like you said, will have to learn, will have to grow, will have to be more curious about being customer first, right? And talk the business language, right? You have to talk the business language to the customer, you have to talk the business language to the investor, correct? Investor, while is trying to learn about the technology, you still have to simplify the technology and make it closer to being in layman terms. Correct? All of that responsibility, you could be a PhD, but can you tell a story? Can you tell a narrative? Right? That is simplified for different stakeholders is a very, very core skill, even for the technical founders. So you may be deeply technical, but it is an art and a skill that we believe and we have seen the best founders really learn. Right? And that really attracts a lot of people around them, right? It attracts early investors, it attracts early customers, it attracts talent, right? Because at the end of the day, even with disruptive tech, right? Let's assume disruptive tech is 25 to 50% of building a large business. There's still 50 to 75% of building a large business, which is running operations, doing other things, hiring people, raising money. Building a business is still building a business, correct?
Sure,
At
yeah.
the heart of it could be cutting edge tech or not. But I think a founder has to be well-rounded. At least one core member in the team has to play that role, right? So, long story short, they have to be able to learn and adapt. That's been our experience. That's what the best founders do.
Sure. So I think Kamlesh, for you a bit of flavor because you work very early with some founders who may be just coming out of universities or just coming from a corporate with a very specific research background. What would be your advice that in order to qualify, like Arjun said, to be to that skill level, what should be they doing in terms of getting to that level of a deep tech, serious deep tech founders? I mean, how you have seen and mentored a lot of those. So what has been your advice to them mostly?
Okay, I wouldn't say advice because I'm not that experienced to give advice, but what I've seen, most of the guys which I have interacted with, right? So uh, mm, uh, we exchange so many papers. I think I don't have long answer or the maybe not right answer, because what I've seen is uh, they are from the academia, or they are postgrad, or they've been working 1 or 2 years in the lab, right? And what they are creating is out of the research that they've been mastering into, right? Or MTech or postgrad, what they were doing into, right? So uh, I would like deep tech startups to before they start, right, or before they are, because see, whatever you do, when we do masters, we choose a specific industry, right? I mean, just like I'm trying to generalize things, because so when I did it in VLS because I was fascinated about ICs and everything, electronics mainly, right? So electronics would have IC, right? All those things I didn't know until I completed my engineering also. It was only master when I realized that it should be VLSI, not embedded system, right? It's the same thing. So whatever you guys are doing, right, as a founder, right? So I would request that first you see what is there in the market. Okay, now the market has evolved. It's not like 90s, right? When transistor came into picture and that. So I would really like founders to go into the market, what they are into researching, and they read all the related papers, because when I'm in Broadcom, right? So when I have to write something, I have to go and do research in IEEE, right? That I go, hey, whether the particular technique method which I am adopting, right, does it exist already? So they have to do to what, because I wouldn't like wasting. I wouldn't say wasting, but they go into do the research which already exists, which they don't know, right? Because these are literally nerds. They are completely focused and reading and researching all those things. They might not know that does this exist already or not, or they don't know, right? So I would have that keep 80% focus on your product, that what you are researching into. The 20% you go and see what is happening with the market also, because it evolves, man. See, because if you see, right, I may be wrong calling AR VR, there was a boom, like Facebook came into picture, and then they it was again calm down, right? So people started it, and then it goes boom, and then you have to think for 5 to 10 years whatever you're building into, right? So as Arjun mentioned before also, right, you would have competitors, but not that many. You will not see, being a deep tech, you will not work into the crowded space also, right?
Sure.
You are mainly working in the space which would take longer time, right? So be realistic also. Again, when you have moonshot problem, right? I mean, that you are trying to solve, right? Going to the space, and you will optimize something, reusable rockets and everything, right? So be realistic about what you're building also. So that is what my advice, because sometimes people go and say, claim that, okay, I will do this and that. No, you do deeper research. There is no shortcut to it, that somebody will come and make IC. I'll make an IC for this thing. No, it doesn't work that way, because there will be people, incumbents will, eat you up like that.
I think what Kamlesh, I think, is very, nicely pointing out is, for a founder, one of the other generic skills is being paranoid. Right? From day one, when you're building your innovation, you should be paranoid as is everybody else, is somebody else building it, or is somebody else going after the same problem in a different way, right?
Sure.
After you build the product, whose product is better? Is mine genuinely better? Is mine 10x? Right? So that, positive, I want to put a positive spin on paranoia. Use paranoia to your advantage to make sure that you are always prepared, right?
Sure.
As a founder, your job is to be prepared.
Sure.
Correct? With answers. Okay, it's okay that if you're not, not today the best, but as long as you know that you are number 2, but somebody else is number 1, and then you know what it takes to beat that, that also investors will respect, right? Because it's basically awareness leading to preparation. Correct?
Sure.
So, I think the famous line is, only the paranoid survive. So I think the startup founder has to do that.
Yeah.
right?
On the
Early stage.
paranoia,
Kamlesh is talking about the absolute early stage, but I think that stays through across the journey.
Yeah.
So one of the paranoia, in the space, of course, is also, of course, it is closer to my discussion is IP, right? What we do, right? Sometimes some founders are very paranoid about IP, some are not, right? So of course, it has been an important criteria, but from an investor's perspective, how important this criteria has been for you in terms of deciding or evaluating a startup, uh, in terms of intellectual property, be it their patents, trademarks, or the secret sauce that they have built around. And what would be your advice to startup founders as far as IP protection and IP goes, uh, from a more investor perspective or from your learning perspective, helping so many startups? What has been your learning in terms of intellectual property, protecting your intellectual property, or using it for the future licensing or whatever revenues that they are thinking of? So what would be your one advice to them on the intellectual property side as well?
Sure. No, I think Kamlesh will throw a lot of light because it's sort of even more core to his industry. I will give a little more generic flavor from my side. It's important what IP you have, and again, it talks about doing a scan of what other people have done or have put out. So you should know that helps. Fun. It helps you in understanding where you lie among competitors or alternatives, right? So doing your prior art early and then figuring out where you stack on that is super critical. And then finding your niche and your core disruption, and then working with partners such as yourself, right? Arctic Event, and try and file for the very specific areas, correct? So that you have that protected at a global level, right? So that no competition comes on some specific aspects and then is able to easily replicate what you're doing. So you have to protect your interest, right? There's also this nuance that in certain industries, the patent itself has immense value, correct? Which is that significance of the patent that increases valuation, that increases probably pricing for what you're building, that increases M&A value, etc. Correct? I think it could be truer in possibly biotech, in semiconductors, and a few other industries. A few other industries, it need not be the patent itself, but it is the secret sauce that you mentioned, right? There need not be a filed patent, right? There could be a trade secret, right? Which actually, by the way, sometimes that balance between trade secret and patent is also interesting.
Yes.
Because patent means you have to file it, you're putting something in the public domain, which will lead to other people reading it and learning and taking something away from it. Some things you absolutely don't want to publish because it's super complex, super unique to your process, maybe manufacturing, maybe putting it together. So that is also, there is, I'm sure people like you can help, like what goes into the patent, what doesn't go into the patent, right?
Sure.
And some combination of a patent, secret sauce, a unique approach to doing that you hold a trade secret, right? Some combination of that is something we as investors really value, right? I wouldn't say we value it 50% or 70%, because at the end of the day, that has to convert into a great product and great economic value. But somewhere in the overall scheme of things, it protects you, it enables you to do more things, and keeps you ahead of the curve. Also, it puts you as if you have put out a few patents, etc. It's a very attractive place for a company to attract talent, right? Hey, this company has published so many patents, right? So really cutting edge talent wants to come and work at such a place, right? That is creating IP because they are also motivated by similar things in addition to it. So it's also a talent acquisition strategy. I think all of these factors go in, at least in our mind. Kamlesh, particularly, you should dive in on depth.
So I think three of the points you mentioned are, which I also, resonate. One is like, so IP is very crucial factor for the deep tech startup. For me, actually, when I look at it, right, because that is the only thing that, excites me when I look at the deep tech, because that is when I assign, that is one of the criteria for me to assign that startup as a deep tech startup, right? The second thing Arjun mentioned is competitive advantage, right? You create or protects your, barrier to entry, because once you have filed it, right, so it becomes you had to have a competitive advantage compared to other guys, right? Okay, you have this pattern, you cannot use it or something like that, or you would have some flavor of it that other guys would be doing it, right? It's just like the ARM ka processor, and then RISC-V, and then you have Intel ka processor, right? These different flavors of the processors, right? But they are doing the same computation thing, right? Other thing is like you would reduce the risk for your product, in the sense that because you have this pattern, right? Somebody else is not coming up and doing the same thing. The third thing is, as Arjun mentioned, valuation potential, right? Because when VCs, because I've seen it, right? So as Arjun mentioned, right, the merger acquisition becomes, because that is what for the deep tech startup, right? When they get acquired earlier, or when they become, right? So there is one portion which comes into play is like how many patents do they have, right? It's like acquisition happens through patents and everything, right? Because that is, they want the core technology that you have, right? So valuation becomes bigger, like especially from the biotech and all the semiconductor side, because literally there's nothing, right? It's an IP only that you are building, right? And then building the product from, right? So valuation potential increases. So for me, right, IP, I would suggest founders to, you identify which you would like to patent, and as you mentioned, right, or something which is trade secret, right? They can use your help. So don't wait too long. Okay, if you have something, just file it, I would say. Because you don't know other people are doing, because this deep tech founders, they are so focused on researching, because they take long to just produce something. So in that process, right, you would have multiple steps, right? Or I would say the IP related, process oriented, or actually the product related, right? There are multiple things for the IPs also, right? So I would say don't wait too long. If you have something, if you have comparative data among your peers or from the global market, right, just file it, I would say, right? And stay informed what you are filing, and does it should it be really trade secret, or the IPs which they can come and bite you. It's like that, right? They say in Facebook movie, the social network, right? That you cannot produce a chair, right? You cannot IP it, right? Anybody can have any chair, is like nothing but the 4 legs, you would have it, right? It's the same thing, right? So what you're filing also matters, because investor, when deep tech investor, they are smart enough, they would have research to, they will have a special one person who would be looking at your data room. Okay, you will go, and whether this IPs is correctly filed or not, right? Does it is it that much valuable for this company, right, for to invest in, right? So IP is most important thing for me as an angel.
Sure. No, I think in interest of time, of course, I have so many questions, but I'll have to cut some questions. But I think very, very important. I think Arjun, my always insight on this secret versus patent is that if your secret can be reverse engineered, best to file a patent. And if your secret cannot be like a Coke formula or Maggi masala formula, just keep it secret. Otherwise, there is a chance that it will be leaked by your employees, or I can just buy a product and just open it up and then reverse engineer it.
Correct.
And stop you from doing it. I would just say that, hey, it's better to file a patent on it. I think that's a basic metric that we, of course, sometimes we work with the startups and kind of try to see, okay, is it really something reverse engineerable or not? So I think that is the metric.
No, that's great advice. I think that's great and very pinpointed, very specific advice. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. So
Thanks.
I think I had a lot of questions, but I think I do want to ask, because we did promise our audience that we'll ask this, but that uh, it's also it's a two-way street, right? It's an investor with startups. So I think in your experience, what questions should startup ask potential investors, and to ensure that they're a good fit, right? And there is a kind of synergy between the money and what they're doing. So I think we had a very interesting discussion on IRRs and all those things. And of course, I do want to understand what would be your advice to founders who are out there looking for money. They don't want to bring some money which will become like that they have to deal every 2 days. Hey, have you really commercialize. I think that is, of course, the biggest. But otherwise, what would you suggest to founders as one piece of advice on that?
No, I think getting to know your investors, and you're right. Please ask them all the hard questions, how they will help you, right? What doors they can open, what is their expertise or what is their network look like that is valuable to your business for your domain. Very important to get to know that. Understand a little bit about their time horizons, right? So that is a proxy or a way of understanding their patience levels and gestation period, and does that align with your nature of business, right? So you should know fund life cycle. Where are they in the cycle currently? How many more years are there? It's a good thing to ask. I think most investors are more than open to share that. It's largely public knowledge, nothing secret. So I think those are super critical. Style of engagement, that would be the other one that I would emphasize, saying, hey, how do they work with their founders? Like you're saying, do they speak on a regular basis? Do they speak once a month? Do they speak on board meetings once a quarter? Right? And in that meeting, what is the structure? What is the expectation? Because the founder has to come prepared for that, and come prepared as well as use that time to get inputs and help from the investors. Right? Investors not only giving money but should be bringing a lot of other value. So I think all of these things, if a founder should explore and should ask ask the investors, how do they do all of these things, right? And in addition to this, I think they should definitely request for other investments that the investors have made and speak to those founders, correct?
Sure.
Similar, like a background intelligence saying, hey, in good and bad times, how does a founder deal? How does an investor? And trust me, I think that relationship, good and bad times will come. Correct?
Yeah.
So that relationship, therefore, an understanding of that, how do they deal? So talk to other founders also. That would be a strong guidance, so that actually, there's no harm in having tough conversations. And in any relationship, any long-standing, there will be tougher phases. But as long as it is for the overall benefit of the company and the outcomes, it's the right thing, right? Every time will not be hunky-dory, right? But you should know what is the style of the investor.
I think we are literally out of time. I wanted to have more and more conversation. I had so many questions, but I think I don't want to take more of your time. I know you have busy schedules. So before we end our session today, it is our customary to ask, could you give us 3 takeaways from this conversation, especially to founders who are raising early stage investments in deep tech, some sort of checklist they could refer, some sort of takeaway as a closer, conclusion of this conversation. It would be great addition. So Kamlesh, why don't you start this time?
Okay. So I wouldn't say defer to this question, but I would suggest founders to read few books. Okay, because it's 2 books which I really liked it, and which I relate to the founders, deep tech founder, because they were also like these 2 books, like Hard Things, right? Ben Horowitz. They were pure into the doing Cloudware and Opsware that what they build into, right? That guy was pure technical from the start, and then he goes into managerial. So that is what happens to your deep tech founder also. As Arjun mentioned, right? It's just like you start to learn it. You just you cross that phase, being a technical founder, and then literally you move to the business guy, right? Just something like that. The second book is like 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, right? So it talks about the monopoly in your business, right? The same thing. Deep tech is nothing but the having the upper edge in the literally the frontier tech that you are building, right? That literally helps you become 10x, right? So that is what it talks about. 2 books is there. In the 1 book from an angel side, I would request the angel who are reading investors, right? It's just like The Power Law by Sebastian Melavi, right? And the VC, which is like American culture in the venture capitalist, right? So this is like from the angel side, how you should be able to help your founders, right? I mean, you don't push too much right, regarding metrics, what is happening in everyday business, but rather you help them with the right kind of business connects, right, with the product review. Because see, you wouldn't be going to the market and selling products. You would be helping them review the products rather, right? Because being an angel, you have invested in the company because you think you have some kind of an expertise in that domain, right? Then only you would be investing, or the founder would be taking your check size, right? So being an angel, help your founders, help him with, if you are not able to help him, help him with, connect with the right business people, right, which will ultimately scale the business and everything. So those are the things I want to convey from this session, that building a deep tech, it's really hard. So just build it, man. I mean, just stay focused. It takes time. Deep tech takes time. There's nothing you leave it and you will see, like, literally that hockey stick kind of thing. Hockey stick in the sense that the curve would come like after 5 years and then you would go up. In other cases, hockey stick will be like 2 to 3 years and then would go up. Here, like literally 5 to 7 years, you would be like nothing. It's like that. So hang in there, I would say, to deep tech founders, right? Because we as an investor also read a lot. That way also we can help you, right, what is happening with the market. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Arjun, there are a lot of questions around some maths. I think you can reply them on LinkedIn. I'll request you.
We'll try and do that offline. Definitely on LinkedIn for sure. Yeah, I can see some of these questions interesting.
And all that. So I think I don't want to bring that question. Of course, it is very specific question. So I would request you to answer it maybe later as you find time. But your takeaway would be great.
No, I think great points from Kamlesh. Great advice for founders. This is a great time to build. So first of all, deep tech is catching a lot of attention. India needs it. The world needs it. Investors are focused. So money is available slowly but steadily. More and more money will be available. So it's a great time for founders. The 2-3 things I would say is, number one, be as prepared as you can be. Number one, right? About customer need, about market size, competition, just preparation, right? Don't get into starting to build because you love the tech. Yes, that is part of it. But please be prepared. Please be prepared on all the other aspects, right? Spend as much time as possible, and that will give you really increased odds of going to all stakeholders and trying to raise capital and doing other things. Number 2 is learn the art of storytelling, right? Because that's a core need. Right? You're building something complex. The audience, particularly investors, may not be experts, right? You have to educate them. So you have to simplify the story. You have to tell a narrative. You have to sell a vision. So please focus on, even though you may not come from that, let's call it sales or marketing background or technical background, right? Just be open and just put yourself, whatever your style, but learn to tell a story, right? And the more you tell stories to different stakeholders, the better the odds of finding success. So that would be the big number 2 from my side. Number 3, I think shoot for the stars. I think take inspiration from so many amazing things that are happening globally, right? Don't sell yourself short. Be really ambitious, right? Just because we have historically India has not done deep tech does not mean we cannot build amazing products. Right, we should have Elon Musk's here. We should have, everybody else from India. Right, we should build a Google from India. We should build a Tesla from here. We should build a SpaceX from here. Right, so ambition. Please have very high ambitions and go after big problem statements and corporate. Right, and that's very exciting. Right, for everybody, because everybody will feed off each other, and that's what we want for the ecosystem. Right, so I think these are 3 things that I would just leave as thoughts. Entrepreneurs who are thinking of building or starting to build.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just add. I think Arjun mentioned twice or thrice regarding, be a good storyteller, right? So in one of my articles, the newsletter, I mentioned about, I would ask founder to go and watch Don Valentine's speech that he gives on Stanford, 2010, right? So this is one of the things. Be a good storyteller. Literally, if you're not able to articulate what you're building, it's of no use to VCs or angels, right? That is the thing. The second video, again, I am a fan of Bill Gurley of Benchmark, right? So again, there is a video. It's like regarding the dream again, where the Texas University or somewhere he gives this speech, right? Go and see like how he, he talks about his friend who opens up business. Restaurants, right? So he worked, how he worked. So it's just like that is how the journey for the deep tech startups is. Just take time off and watch these two videos. You would understand everything. Yeah. Okay.
Very strong
Thanks.
recommendations from Kamlesh,
Yes,
right?
yes. I think
Amazing.
I will
I don't
definitely
read as much as Kamlesh, but I think all his book and video conversation recommendations are on point.
It's like a textbook, a must watch. Without this, you
Absolutely.
can't do this. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Kamlesh, for really, really telling us these resources, because I think a lot of times we don't know what to really refer to. I think that was one of the reasons I got this started. That a lot of conversations around were not happening, right? So thank you for joining in this conversation, Arjun and Kamlesh. Thank you for being. I know we are 10 minutes late. But I really enjoyed this insightful, practical discussion we had, and I'm sure audience got a lot of actionable insight. A lot of people are asking how they can connect. I'm sure they can reach out to you on LinkedIn. Thank you again, and we'll surely be following up with a lot of insights from our discussions on LinkedIn. So thank you, and have a great evening and rest of the week.
Thank you, Govind, for having us. Lovely conversation. Thank you, Kamlesh. Enjoyed this doing this with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much. It was an honor. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye. So our audience can follow Arjun and Kamlesh through their links and comments, and you can follow me on LinkedIn and ring a bell for next episodes. We are doing a fintech related, conversation by the end of this month. So please follow up. Please follow our page, and I'm sure we'll definitely reach out to you and tell you in advance when it's happening. And I hope this episode of the new year will help you plan and fuel your startup path in 2024. If you have any topics or would like to discuss any topic, please feel free to let me know. I will try my best to get a speaker and a resource for that. And thank you again for supporting me and helping me kicking off a startup series in 2024. I'll catch you in the next episode. Good evening. Bye bye.